Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. And someone will say his career can never be saved. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage.
Hey guys, welcome to another installment of Just Nicolas Cage, where I very slowly work my way through Nicolas Cage's filmography. Today I'm talking about the second part of the 90s Nicolas Cage Holy Trinity, Con Air. In Con Air, Nicolas Cage kills a guy in self-defense and is sentenced to jail. 8 years later, he's set to go home, but he has to travel on a plane full of the baddest of the bad convicts. And when you know it all goes wrong and the inmates take over. So it's up to Cage to take control, help his diabetic best friend, and get on home to his wife and daughter. I'm gonna make it clear right off the bat, this movie is very near and dear to me. Partly because it was my first exposure to Nicolas Cage. I was about 11, I think, when I first saw it. I was over in Ireland and it came on TV. Nicolas Cage graced the scene and it was love at first sight. And it's also the Nicolas Cage movie I've rewatched the most times. At this point, I've probably seen it about 6 times. And in contrast, I've only seen The Rock and Face Off like once or twice. But the weird thing is, for as many times as I've seen this movie, I don't think I've ever properly evaluated this movie in my head before. I've never really, sat down and analyzed why I like it so much. Like if somebody said to me, why do you like Con Air so much? I'd go, because it kicks ass? I don't know. But that doesn't really work for a YouTube review. Hey guys, here's my review of Con Air. It kicks ass. Alright, thanks for watching. And I've seen a lot of people consider this movie a guilty pleasure. And the first few times I heard that, I was like, guilty? Why? It's a flawless film. What's there to be guilty about? Oh, you must mean because all the convicts on the film, they're the guilty people. It's a guilty pleasure, I get it. But evaluating it fairly, I can admit it does have its flaws. There's bad CGI, dumb character decisions, pretty much no character arcs. That song, How Do I Live With... really sucks, I hate that. And not to mention all the things that don't really make sense. Why does Nicolas Cage get 10 years in jail for killing a man that was attacking his pregnant wife? How does nobody in the casino recognize the famous serial killer at the end? And how in the hell does Cyrus the Virus go falling from the Vegas Strip to that industrial building site at the end? But to counterpoint all of those things, you could just say that Nicolas Cage has a bad lawyer. I mean, look at this guy, he doesn't look confident. Or maybe the sentencing plot point is some sort of critique of the judicial system. And maybe nobody recognized Steve Buscemi at the end, because this is an era before everybody watched Netflix true crime documentaries. There's a possibility not everybody would have known what he looked like. And that thing about how Cyrus flies from the Vegas Strip to the construction site, I can't really explain. But it does lead to that awesome Final Destination style death, so it's totally worth it. I think if you ask most people to guess who directed this movie, most people would guess Michael Bay. Last video I talked a lot about the Michael Bay calling cards, and you can find a lot of them here. It's very heavy on the explosions, there's glorification of the military and a critique of bureaucracy, and you've also got questionable depictions of certain minority groups and kind of iffy racial stuff. I do kind of like that you have these Aryans and these black nationalists forced to work together. It's a fun dynamic, but a lot of the racial stuff is pretty heavy-handed. You have Ving Rhames as a black nationalist who's whipping people. It's not subtle stuff. There's actually a pretty good Cracked video that has a semi-satirical look at all the Republican messages in the movie.
The plane is a microcosm of the entire country, and each criminal represents a different aspect of modern liberal America that Poe, a good old boy with a folksy drawl and juiced up on conservative values, has to destroy one by one. It's a propaganda film.
But the reason that the movie feels so Michael Bay-ish is that it was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, a frequent collaborator of Michael Bay, who also produced Bad Boys, The Rock, and Armageddon. Con Air was actually directed by a guy called Simon West. Con Air was the first movie he ever directed. And you might not know his name, but I can guarantee that everybody watching this has seen something that he directed. Now, the thing I'm talking about is a crazy video. It's insane. It's gonna blow your mind. Alright, you ready? Roll the video. And you might be going, okay, George, what is this, 2006? You're Rick-rolling me? But no, the director of Con Air actually directed the music video to Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. I'm completely serious. I'm never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. But anyway, who gives a shit about all that stuff? It's Con Air. Let's talk about the awesome stuff. Let's start with my boy Cage as Cameron Poe. Which, by the way, it always struck me as weird that Oscar Isaac's character in Star Wars was called Poe Dameron. It's like somebody was trying to create a username and went like, Cameron Poe. Ah, shit, it's taken. Alright, Poe Cameron. Shit. Alright, Poe Dameron. Screw it. But anyway, Cage is awesome in this movie. It's actually quite a nice contrast from The Rock, where he played a scientist that had to step up to be a hero. But here he's in full-blown heroic form throughout. He's so badass that he gets shot in the arm and doesn't even flinch. Cage is in great shape here, and he's got a glorious head of hair. And of course I have to talk about his accent. Apparently he traveled to Alabama to perfect the dialect. I'll let you be the judge if that paid off.
Dear hummingbird, break out the fine china, chill the lemonade, tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, 'cause this boy's coming home to his ladies, coming home forever.
Personally, I get a real kick out of the accent. I think he kind of sounds like Forrest Gump, which is appropriate because his friend is Bubba from Forrest Gump. Crazy accent aside, Nicolas Cage's character and performance is actually one of the more grounded parts of the movie. He's very subdued. He never goes into a rage or even really raises his voice. Even when crazy shit is going down, his voice never really raises above this level. His most iconic part in the movie is put the bunny back in the box.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Which I don't think would have been quite as memorable if he said, "Put the bunny back in the box!" And I usually am kind of disappointed when Nicolas Cage plays it straight. But I think it's the right call here. Especially because he's surrounded by all these larger-than-life personalities. If he was unhinged and yelling, it might have taken away the spotlight from all the other weirdos. And before I get to those interesting supporting characters, I feel obligated to talk about John Cusack, because he takes up a lot of screen time in the movie. He plays the US Marshal that's trying to bring these criminals to justice. And the character serves a purpose. I mean, you need a man-on-the-ground type character. But I do just kind of wish the character and maybe the performance was a bit more compelling. But the saving grace of all those parts is Carl Meany as the angry DEA agent. He is chewing up scenery and it's awesome.
If I knew the way you guys run things, I would have gone and bring a fucking Uzi on board. Your men are incompetent.
Although it is kind of hard to take him seriously for two reasons. One, I kind of recently watched all of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, so it's really hard not to see him as O'Brien. It's like, why don't you just beam somebody over to the plane? The second reason is that there's no way that somebody with a head that Irish is ever going to be believable as an American. So earlier I was trying to pin down specifically what it is about this movie that I love so much, and I think I've got it. I love a rogues gallery. One of my favorite tropes is a assorted gang of weirdos and freaks that the good guy has to take down. And Con Air has one of the best lineups of evil freaks and weirdos ever. Roger Ebert said it's like a weirdo version of those comic books where the superheroes hold a summit. And yeah, they do kind of remind me of Batman villains. Maybe even more so like the villains out of something like the Powerpuff Girls. You know, even the characters' names sound like something out of a cartoon. Like Cyrus the Virus and Billy Bedlam. Although maybe not Johnny 23, who's called that because he's raped 23 women. Then again, that makes me question how Ben 10 got his name. So let's dive into some of my favorite supporting characters in the movie. Let's start with John Malkovich as soft-spoken criminal mastermind Cyrus the Virus. I love Cyrus the Virus. I think he's an all-time great villain. I get such a kick out of him being this, like, psychopathic criminal who also does, like, eloquent soliloquies on top of the plane.
Well, it's not difficult to surmise how Nathan here feels about killing guards, and my own proclivities are well-known and often lamented facts of penal lore.
I don't know if a killer has ever used the word proclivities before, but I love it. What's interesting is that for the main villain of the movie, he's not super intimidating. But I was looking at a list of all the people that were considered and even auditioned for the part of Cyrus the Virus, which included Mickey Rourke and Willem Dafoe, and they for sure would have been more threatening. But it would have been a totally different character. And I think the way that Malkovich plays Cyrus the Virus with almost a Shakespearean quality really works. Another character I really like is Dave Chappelle. He's not in it that much, but almost everything he says is really funny. And I think he improvised a lot of it.
Oh man, it smells like someone shit in your mouth.
Told me he loved me.
Get out of my face.
Probably my favorite character in the whole movie is Steve Buscemi's character, in case you couldn't already tell. He plays the serial killer Garland Green, who comes in wearing like a Hannibal Lecter contraption. But he's actually one of the most chill characters in the whole movie. And he comes out with these thought-provoking philosophical pontifications.
What if I told you Insane was working 50 hours a week in some office for 50 years, at the end of which they tell you to piss off? Ending up at some retirement village, hoping to die before suffering the indignity of trying to make it to the toilet on time. Wouldn't you consider that to be insane?
Steve Buscemi knocks the role out of the park here. It's perfect casting and a perfect performance. Probably the most memorable scene in the whole movie is where he meets the little girl. You think he's gonna kill her, but then you see her waving goodbye later. I've seen a lot of people complain that he doesn't kill the kid, but I love that subversion. To me, it's actually way more shocking that the guy who, by his own admission, once wore a girl's head as a hat, doesn't kill the kid and just has a tea party with her and sings Bible songs. Because you go, why didn't he kill her? You go, you know, is he now reformed, or where some of the stories just exaggerated or not true? Or is the girl a figment of his imagination? I mean, the guy does find the doll at the end, though. To me, the eeriest part of that scene isn't even Steve Buscemi. It's why is there a little girl in a abandoned pool with, like, dirt on her face? It's like something out of Mad Max or something. It's so weird. But everybody knows about Cyrus the Virus and Garland Green, so let's get into the more obscure characters. Do you know about Swamp Thing? He's the convict with the long hair and the mustache who flies the plane. I love this guy. He looks so happy when the camera cuts to him. But what's his deal? Almost every other character gets a little bio about what he did, but I don't think we ever get to know what he was convicted for. I also want to know how he knows how to fly a plane. I'm interested in this guy. Another character I always wanted to find out more about was Sally Can't Dance. The movie doesn't say why they're in jail either, or even if the character's trans or non-binary or just a gay guy that likes to dress up. But I do like that all these murderers and scumbags treat this character as an equal. Even Nicolas Cage slaps them instead of punching. So overall with Con Air, a lot of the politics and racial stuff doesn't fully hold up. There's plot holes, there's a whole lot of 90s cheesiness, and I don't think I could ever call this movie a guilty pleasure. I call it a full-on guilt-free pleasure, baby. I love this movie. I've loved this movie for about 20 years and I still get a kick out of it to this day. And even the things that don't fully work add to the charm. It's that perfect level of 90s over-the-top awesomeness. There's some kick-ass set pieces, and Nicolas Cage as an Alabama badass basically surrounded by the occupants of Arkham Asylum is never not cool to me. I think it's that star-studded supporting cast, though, that truly immortalizes the film. The performances and the characters are just all so memorable. And even the characters that only appear on screen for a few minutes end up occupying my mind and they make me speculate about their backstories. And that to me is a sign of a good movie. So I guess I figured out why I like Con Air so much. Although I do think if I just said Con Air kicks ass and left it at that, it would have been just as valid. So next up is the final part of the Nicolas Cage 90s action Holy Trinity, and that's Face Off. So until then guys, thanks for watching.